Welcome back, or welcome to Design with Renn, a podcast where I dive into the craft, the challenges, and the human side of design. I'm Renn Scott, a design leader, practitioner, and collaborator who spent years across healthcare, wearables, finance, and future-facing technology. This podcast is my space to explore how design really happens, not just the shiny outcomes, but the mindsets and practices that work. Today's episode connects directly to human-centered design, where we focus not only on methods and tools, but also the mindsets that guide us, such as curiosity, empathy, optimism, and humility. These aren't just abstract values, they're the way that we make decisions and approach people and adapt to change. And I couldn't think of a better person to explore this with than, as soon as next month, Dr. Kem Laurin-Lubin. Kem is a design researcher, strategist, educator whose work bridges industry and academia. She's led teams, written extensively about human-centered design and inclusivity, and continues to shape how organizations, individuals, teams think about innovation. Kem, welcome. I'm so glad to have you here with me once again.
I'm always happy to be here, Renn. And for your viewers and listeners, feel free to call me Kem if you're part of this family. And yes, just the red mug. And this was not planned.
It's so funny. We are truly linked through our mugs and other life experiences. Go figure.
Yeah.
So
Thanks for having me.
yeah, no, wonderful to see you again. So let's human-centered design, HCD, mindsets. Let's start with curiosity. So for me, curiosity has always been about asking questions that go beyond the obvious and letting those questions reshape projects entirely. So Kem, in your own work, how has curiosity opened unexpected doors or shifted any project's direction?
Wow. You know, the first thing that popped into my mind was a project that, for me, although it happened 20 years ago, is the one that I have the most visceral memory of. And I was working for Siemens back in Princeton, Siemens Research in the US. And they'd sent me down to Florida to the Amex Center, American Express Center. But it was the American Express Center office where they mailed out things to customers. So, yeah, it gave the vibe of a mail room. And I was working on Siemens postal automation systems. And we talked about this, Renn, the last call where we talked about how significant it is to touch the things you're designing, feel the people for whom you're designing. I remember, sitting and watching machines break down, the postal automation machines. And the folks working there was a sign of, there was resentment. There was also, anxiety, because every time that machine broke down, somebody had to leave the main postal floor, climb a flight of stairs, where the big shots sat, and say the machine is broken down. They'd come down, they'd do something with the machine, and it would start again. And this happened. I was there for a visit for 3 days. This happened a lot. And it struck me that everybody working on the floor seemed to be of the same ethnic background. Hey, about it. So I thought in my studies, I was, just asking, what are the problems they were having with the system at the time? Come to find out that a lot of these folks working there had big degrees wherever they came from. And this was the job they could land. And there was some sort of a shame in them every time the machine broke down to have to do the walk of shame up the stairs, to ask the big boss, can you come down and fix the machine? And you could see that. And it's really, for us, my team and I, it really informed how we designed the interface, knowing that there were people for whom we could actually simplify it with maybe like a text system or something in the interfaces in which they were working. And so I think when, you have that level of curiosity around, how people do, why they do the things they do, it really does help inform that. But it was also not just that, but also going upstairs to those stakeholders and seeing they had sticky notes all over their screens. Like, what are all these sticky notes, right? I want to know, what are these? And for them, they were shorthands because their bosses had actually closed the system off to them. And they saw only what they needed to see. So there was also another round of them walking up another, flight of stairs for direction. So for me, that was, I think, one case where that virtue of just being curious about people, what they do, was really instrumental. I talk about this 20 years, right? But
Mhm.
instrumental in how you actually design systems, knowing that everybody's going through something and you need to know what that thing is and whether or not the thing you're designing can help ease that. So the final design of our postal automation system basically automated a lot of the manual things they were doing. And that
Mhm.
was only informed by just being curious about, like, why are you going upstairs?
Yeah.
What exactly, are you asking?
It's so interesting because it makes me like with whenever I am setting up a project, like my own project or projects with clients or teaching how to create an experience, I talk about like the people, the context, the
Mm-hmm,
activities. So
mm-hmm.
who are the people you're designing for, where are they, and what are they doing? Public,
Yeah,
private space. Is it noisy, crowded? Um,
yeah,
there's individuals or others around, and so the people, the context, and the activity. So what are they doing? And
yeah,
so what you've really revealed in the context in this case is that you became aware of what they're doing and how they're doing it, but also the context in which they are, their mindset,
yeah.
or what got them there. So by, being curious about these people and who are they, to find out
Mhm.
they're more academic or more qualified perhaps than, or
Yeah.
should perhaps, you said more qualified than
Overqualified.
what the
Yeah.
job needed. So they, going upstairs, yes, it was their job to get it fixed, but they likely, I mean, I wasn't there to interview them or observe them, but the feeling of, oh, I have to go up and present myself as someone that needs help, but this role I'm playing is, I'm feeling it's less than, it's something I should be able to do, but I want to be recognized for my larger skill set. So
Yes.
how can you create a system or a way of them, presenting themselves that would allow them to, feel good about, oh, this is my opportunity to actually go upstairs and ask for help, but I can provide some recommendations that showcase more of the larger skills that I have.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah. Or even well, going upstairs and then seeing the others that have all the
The sticky notes.
sticky notes is like, I remember actually years ago working at BlackBerry where I had, well, this is not a BlackBerry, it's an iPhone, but I was walking around and I had all these like Post-its stuck to my phone. And I thought, at one point I went, hmm, I think I could put an app on the BlackBerry so that instead of like putting these like Post-its to carry around of, you know, short-term things that I wanted to remember, what about putting that into the notes as a to-do
Yes.
reminder and crossing it out? So, I mean, now of course that exists, but it was this, when a frequent thing that I remind myself is, looking around my space and my everyday experiences is what are the things that I'm consistently doing that really, if I
Mm.
spent, 5-10 minutes, screwing in, the door knob that's constantly causing me pain,
Yes. Yes.
to shift to hold it opened, whatever it might be. It's like I could fix that
Yeah.
as opposed to just kind of going past it every day and thinking, oh, it's what a pain. But, it's like
Yeah.
these things as we become more curious, we go, oh, okay, I could actually put something in place, or these are things from a design point of view that allow us to improve or refine or create something new in the first place.
Reminds you of the creak on my steps, on my
Yeah.
staircase. Uh, yeah. But I want to pause and give you your flowers because I think we're having this moment in 2025.
Hmm.
And designers will be listening to this, and these are designers from a different generation, perhaps. But what you don't realize, back in the day, it was a blank slate, right? And so
Hmm.
the kinds of work that you and I did, of course, I know you have hundreds of patents probably, but it was really working from nothing and creating something out of nothing. And so you deserve your flowers for that as well, too. And so I know you're not good at complimenting yourself, but all of
Thank
these
you.
sticky notes somehow manifested sometimes into solutions on BlackBerry, right? So
100%. Yeah.
if I had I do have a real flower for you. There you go. There's your
Oh,
flower.
that's wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah,
the
that's so interesting. But
Mhm.
to the conversation of the gentleman on the second floor with all the sticky notes, I was there for 3 days in Florida, and I had deep conversations with him, and I'm like, what are all of these? And why do you have a calculator, right?
Mhm.
So he was calculating things related to the postal service. and setting, what's going to Hawaii, what's going to some army base here and there. And a lot of the sticky notes were quotes he couldn't remember. And I was asking myself, why don't we have this as some sort of a quick reference in our UI? So when we actually went back to test the final software, there were no sticky notes.
Hmm.
Nobody was going upstairs. There were things in the user interface. So one of the things that was disabled was, you probably remember back in the day where you could only use the application, you couldn't go on the on the internet. So you were sort of locked into that space.
Mm-hmm.
So what we designed was something that could enable people access. I think you could even go into a calculator, right, without some bypass.
Mm-hmm.
So we're able to design all of these things that were born out of nothing, and very similar to what you did with your sticky notes as well. Too, I come to think of it, I haven't seen a sticky note in a while, but
I think I've got a few here. I've got large
yeah,
Post-its, but yeah, they don't get used as much, especially with so many workshops being facilitated online now that
yeah,
you can replicate, of course, the experience to a small extent, but yeah, nothing like a nice big stack of sticky notes when it's a in-person brainstorm. Sometimes, yeah.
yeah,
Of course, digital
yeah.
so much more efficient and we can share and keep track easier, but there's always a time and place. So leading off of
Um,
what you talked about with the gentleman that you were talking upstairs, so empathy is our next mindset that I wanted to talk
yeah,
about. And one word we so often use in design, but in practice, it can be complicated.
yeah,
I found it
yeah,
requires sitting, and as you talked about actually just now, that sitting with perspectives that may feel uncomfortable, or letting go of our own assumptions about what people want and need.
yeah.
For your projects or things that you're working on now and in the past, how do you approach empathy in a way that avoids cliche, allows you to create deeper understanding?
I just recently blogged about my experience as a digital transformation coach. And I
Mm,
think the natural trajectory for a lot of people in UX and research, a lot of them end up doing digital transformation coaching because it's a lot of design thinking. And I think I wrote about this back in October of last year. I was facilitating a session for a bunch of underwriters.
mm,
And the idea was to glean from them as a collective, what are the things they're having problems with in the software, so that we could vet that against some options of software that they could actually purchase. And I will never forget this moment. It's still very visceral and a little embarrassing for me. But we had taken a break, and this gentleman, he came and he stood right next to me and he said, I guess you're automating our jobs, huh? And I was really thrown back because I thought, yeah, I'm helping you automate your job. Sorry, automate me out of a job. Automate me out of a job. And I remember, I still get like choked up thinking about it, but I remember thinking, holy crap, yes, that's what I'm doing. I am taking knowledge that you have here so that I could help create that in a software. And that for me was something I think about when I do these sessions, is to really think about the stakeholders and where they're at
mm-hmm,
in that process, especially now when we think about, critical design. And what that means is really the ability to view things from different lenses. Right. And we go into these spaces trying to create amazing digital solutions, but there are people who did these things in the past, and oftentimes they're the stakeholder giving you that data.
mm-hmm,
And so that information that becomes data. So in terms of empathy, sometimes empathy is encased by some uncomfortable joke, right? And that really gave me new ways of thinking about how I approach these sessions to make sure that I give voice to people and also spend time talking about human oversight in the AI practice, right?
mm-hmm,
So they don't just see a future, because a lot of this is futurescaping without them.
mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot to dive in more deeply there with what you're talking about. One thing that comes to mind as you were talking about the gentleman that said, "Oh, you're here to," um, sorry, I don't want to
Automate me out of a job.
automate me. You're here to automate me out of a job.
Yeah.
And with these types of conversations, what I often think about when I'm setting up the questions. So,
Mhm.
of course, I should say, of course, in the context of like like there's different ways to test or different ways to ideate. So, one is, like interviewing people, observing them in their day to day job or tasks, or
Yeah.
immersing ourselves in their environment, like playing the role that they play, side
Mhm.
or working alongside with them to do a given task, if I just kind of simplify this as an idea. But well, we're asking the questions to get like to understand them, but it really feels with what you were just talking about, where the person said, "You're looking to automate me out of a job." It's like,
Mhm, mhm.
what if it was framed, or he could understand it as, "I'm looking to understand what you do in order to make your job easier, more efficient, more fun, enjoyable," I guess, depending on the
Yeah.
context. And I also would like to understand, how can you use the power of AI in order to do the things that you're not able to do in your everyday job,
Mhm,
so that
mhm.
you can be, more enabled, more empowered, feel better about your work. And that as that interview in part is of, oh, well, I shouldn't say the interview is always to learn more or to validate our assumptions and to provide feedback to the development team or those that are creating the product.
Yeah.
It really made me think of that process of interviewing differently, in that for where people have a perception of what AI is or what it does or how it might replace them, it's like, what if that's also an opportunity for them to begin to understand what it can do, to
Mhm,
work with it,
mhm.
be a kind of co-creator, collaborator, so that their responses are helpful, and that you can understand, certainly, yeah, what are the things that I'm going to help create the software for, that will replace redundant tasks or tasks that can be done in a different,
Yeah.
while also, creating a system that's very human, that is one that this person can understand the value that the technology can provide them, in order
Mhm.
to have it still have a job, but a better job,
Yeah.
a
Yeah,
different
yeah.
job. One that they're, they become more technically enabled because they start to gain the knowledge of what the technology can enable for them, versus feeling like it's something that they're competing with.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I have so many use cases that intersect with AI, and that's just one. But I think as well too, when we think about, the wider conversation around empathy, is that we need to place it against the backdrop of the moment, right?
Mhm.
And there was, I will say, in the last year, some contentions in the work that I did, because I'm using the very stakeholders that I'm automating them out of a job, if you want
Mm.
to say that. And not that AI will ever replace them, it will replace the things they do. And that general overarching empathy for the moment, I think, is also very critical, right? And so the one other case study that just came to mind was the new, I think it's an Adobe product that enables the recording of when you call into customer services and stuff like that. And
Hmm.
then they could produce an output of a script, because that's when they say to you, do you mind if we record this message or this conversation? This is actually now being used to do performance reviews, right? That very script.
Wow.
I'm very well aware of that. That's for the company that I was engaged with working on that. And so again, you have these people who are there to give empathy for the problem you're having when they call in. And the second layer is that the script that they're producing, the text via the conversation, is being used to evaluate them,
Hmm.
right? And so, these are the kinds of things that has given me whiplash for the work we do, because we are not always cognizant of the backstory, right?
Mhm.
So, yeah, so I think with that as well, too, empathy plays a part in terms of how we interact with the people for whom we're creating solutions, to also now, with the whole onset of critical design, to consider, what they're going through in the
Mhm.
moment, right?
So many, external factors and, stressors that can influence
Yeah,
our day-to-day experiences, and certainly with the world as it is now, that those are, heavy, burdens that many people carry, and we really can't, assume, or as we're looking to be, empathetic, that the way people may present themselves may not, certainly be what their current experience is. It's like we all just want to get ahead in life and have, love and
yeah,
love and happiness, and you never know what. I certainly I found that Certainly once, lucky me, I have a fantastic son. But, certainly I can now see that, there's so many things that can happen before 7 a.m. in the morning that I certainly wasn't aware of for, people that I would have worked with or colleagues and
Yeah.
peers that I would be, doing projects with that
Yeah.
would would have had that as part of their, morning experience before they simply came in. So it's like really makes you look at the world very differently.
Yeah. We all have a backstory that is somehow not part of the script of the design systems, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, wonderful lead into the next mindset, which is optimism.
Hmm.
And I loved your reflection before before we started recording. What I would
Yeah.
say about optimism. So, optimism isn't for me. That sounded really bad. Optimism for me isn't about blind positivity. It's about spotting potential even when the constraints feel heavy, like in healthcare or in highly
Mm.
regulated systems. Where have you seen optimism act as a lever for change in your projects, your writing, your teaching?
Mm. Perhaps the case, I not that I will have an answer for all of your wonderful questions, but this
I
comes
never want
to
to make it
mind.
easy for you. These are all, thought provoking, and each time I have a conversation with you, then I feel like my questions become larger and broader because you just really inspire me with each. So hey, there's no right or wrong answer ever.
Okay, that's good to know because I suddenly feel like a student, but optimism,
Come
blind
on.
optimism. So this goes back to 2016 when I was charged with leading the what was it called? There was a title that we call it the modernization of Maya, the Maya software, Autodesk Maya. We
Mm-hmm.
inherited this legacy software that was after my BlackBerry days. One of my favorite
Wow.
jobs, by the
Yeah.
way.
So cool.
Um,
Go.
yeah,
You
yeah.
were.
So I had a team.
Mhm.
I think I had a team of 50 something people with 4 different leads. And it was one of these where we were touching fire. So if you know of the Maya fan club, you don't touch the software. It needs to look exactly the way it did in 1984.
Mhm.
And I remember, using some of the other pieces of software for projects during my grad, and thinking, oh my God, this is like a scary piece of software.
Mhm.
So this particular modernization of that software came with assault online with
Wow.
people saying, why the F are you changing blah, right? And so this goes back again to empathy. And one of the things we realized as we began to do ethnographic studies and unpack, a lot of these people had begun to associate who they were with the software. So a lot of their job title were things like, I'm a Maya developer, because the software is not only a design of software, there was
Mhm.
also development. So you had to have been a coder to be able to use the software. But my job was really modernizing the applique with my team, the icons, you know, within the software itself sat about 5 different workflows that only an animator would use, or only a modeler would use, or only whatever would use. But
Mhm.
when you looked at the interface, it was just all thrown in there, figure it out. And so imagine these people had gone their entire careers learning the software. There's
Mhm.
something wonderful about starting as a novice in the software and becoming an intermediate and an expert. And
Mhm.
some of the things we're offering were wizards to get to the completion of tasks, providing the next best action. And so all of these older folks were like, what the hell? This looks like it's built for teenagers now, right? And so these were all things we had to take into consideration as we went through the prototyping phase. And what took us through that was optimism that what we were creating as a collective, as a team, would somehow maintain the integrity of those who'd been using the software forever when they got it on the CDs to
That's interesting.
those who just wanted to get it from Amazon Web Services. And
Mhm.
so for us, this was one of the most difficult, stressful projects I've ever worked with because of the fan base that were
Mhm.
online on forums and stuff. Every time we clicked an icon, like, why is it that icon? Right? It's like,
Mhm.
well, we had to think of the changing metaphors. So there's a whole generation who don't know some of these icons. They're like, what is that thing? Oh, that's mail. Well, that's not email. But they don't realize that email itself has inherited some of the iconography of the mail space, right? In
Yeah.
the analog world. So that's what we dealt with. And I think it was optimism that just got our team through 2016 of thinking we know we're building something that will satisfy you and you'll still be a developer, right?
Hmm.
Because they have that in the title, but we still need to make money as a business and appeal to, the younger designers who don't want to learn all the stuff you've learned. So
Yeah, that's so interesting. It's like the
you
version.
could find this online where people have told me F off. Absolutely, because with my team, we had this whole idea of let's keep our forums happy. So Friday, there was no work during that time, and we just sat around sitting on the forums as a team,
Hmm.
responding to people. So we got to know people, our
Amazing. Yeah.
customers, right? And so I know there's some stuff online where people are swearing at me and my team because we're making changes to the software.
Yeah, well, that's such a great reflection. This is like thinking of the user experience. Like we want to refine and improve it, make it easier to use and understand. Well, that as an approach being offensive to
Yeah.
the that I wonder, and I'd be so curious to kind of look back at some of those conversations where the people that were responding with "f off, I love you."
I love you. I love you too.
Yeah, where it's like wondering like why are you changing? But like once you started to engage, you and your team, my assumption, once you started to engage with them online and they got to understand like why are you doing this and what's your intention, that like that as a way of just like starting to engage them, allowing them to be heard, felt and understood, that
Yeah.
my assumption is that they would themselves start to, give some ideas as to how to
Yeah.
organize the task flow or make some steps, or at least look at it from the point of view of, okay, I've got Maya for developers that
Yeah.
still allow me to be the expert and kind of curate or they would have a curated approach because their approach would be like hotkeys or maybe like stick
Yes.
on their screens to understand, well, how do I get to that and do that? And I have that already in my head, how to do that without even thinking about it. And then you and team are making it more seamless and so on. It's like, I don't even know how to do this now. It's like, yeah, it's like 1, 2, 3 clicks, but before I was just doing this with my eyes
And
closed
things.
and getting it further ahead on my own. So it reminds me of there was a project that I did as well that ended up to be but they had from the beginning this idea of for developers versus for creators or
Yes.
designers,
Yes.
researchers, etc. That for those that were less tech savvy, like a wizard
Yeah.
style, step by step, or a kind of a reduced feature version of the software in order for that group of users, primary, secondary. I think you called this a different thing in another call we were talking about. It's not primary or secondary. You said was
Oh,
the
yes, yes, yes. Not the French, but I think I called it, was they called it French? French users?
yeah the
Or something like that.
primary and the fringe. I can't remember, but I really
Yeah.
like you had framed
Yeah,
it
yeah, yeah,
primary and secondary
yeah.
users. Just
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, really think of it very differently when it's like more of the fringe. So it's that to me really implies not just the secondary, the one that may not use it the most, but the ones that may use it in a way that's unexpected that allows us to then understand more of the capability of the software. Because typically with so much software or
Yeah.
products, whatever it might be, that people use maybe, 2 to 5% of this larger capability
That
that's
was exactly it for us. And it goes back to the whole idea of critical design. It's looking at things through different lenses,
mhm,
right? And so, yeah, and also just giving people grace of
mhm.
where they're coming from in the use of the software. But you said the hotkeys, and I had to chuckle because
I don't even know what those
oh,
are.
yeah, my sons will see me go control V, control N. They're like, how do you know all this? I said, we had to learn all these things back in the day. We even had a stencil that we put over the laptop to
Wow.
remember the hotkeys. Right? That's
Yeah.
how old I am.
Yeah, you're not old, just wise,
No. Why?
since we've been
Yeah.
working together since we were 5.
Right, right.
So
Oh,
there's my, cuckoo clock right on cue. I don't know if you can hear it.
I can hear it. My
So
grandma's cookie clock.
yeah, right on cue. So humility is the next mindset that I wanted to chat about, and this is actually one that you've brought up in a couple of our conversations.
Yeah.
And it may be, I feel, the hardest one, at least for me, or for many people. And for me, it shows up when it shows up when my first ideas don't land. I shouldn't say it's the hardest one. Um,
Oh.
because I embrace humility. I feel like I don't like the saying of the fail fast, but it, perhaps that's the way people would describe it. I love prototyping. I love iterating. I feel that
Yeah.
I want to have the opportunity to try things that I believe if you don't try something that then doesn't work, that you can't actually create something that's truly novel or new. So humility, for me, it shows up when my first ideas, and I'd say, I ideally have like 3 to 5
Mhm, mhm.
within a short period of time because we don't have, decades to create things, but, fast sketch, conversational prompts, whatever it might be to try out first ideas. So it shows up when my first ideas don't land or when research completely overturns what I thought I knew, like showing something and then people go,
Yeah, yeah.
I thought you'd like this. So it kind of reiterates the reasons and, when you're talking through how you would observe and have conversations, like as soon as possible within a design process or,
Mhm.
initial product concept ideation, nothing has to exist. So I start having conversations about what people
Yeah.
need. And, from there, that is research, even though it's not a perfected product, but that you can see what, that this initial conversation research can really completely overturn what we thought
Mhm.
we knew. So I have learned to lean into, ambiguity, into discomfort and let that reshape my work. And I'm so curious what humility looks like in your design practice,
Um,
writing, teaching, whatever comes to mind.
Test, I've witnessed a lot of what you've described. The way you work, it's very iterative and very immersive. And I remember you walking around with lots of objects on you because you're trying to, perfect things and have people try things out. So, especially the work you did with the science center as well too.
Hmm.
I don't know. I think we talked about this for the second podcast, and for me, going back to school was very humbling. Like it
Mm,
was. I think I went back. I led teams at this big company, blah blah blah, and and then you get back into a student position, and there's certain things that you've experienced in the real world. Now they're being talked about at a very intangible academic level, and you're like, "But I live this. Like, why won't you listen to me?" And whatever. So that was my most recent um mind shifting example of being in a space where I was very humble, right? I remember having, tips with professors, and one professor said to me, "You do realize there's like a theory for the thing that you're talking about that, when you as a researcher enter academia, you have to think of the scaffolding on whose backs are you building things, right? You're not the first." And
mm,
so that was something that seeped in, I think, relatively slowly for me, realizing that I wasn't the first one to do it. And maybe somebody was not a designer researcher exercising and animating the thing. Maybe they were theorists, but they've already talked about the thing, but
mm,
perhaps not practiced the thing. So for me, again, to when, I talk about things like critical design, I learned all of the criticality aspects of it from, going back to school and learning that in much the same way, the way I was designing something, that was just me presenting this thing.
mhm,
And for you to be a critical designer, is to do exactly what you were doing. You were putting yourself out there and allowing yourself to be molded. And so, in much the same way, I think that's how I position myself as a critical designer is
mhm,
to be able to know that we're discussing an object, but they have perhaps maybe 7 different viewpoints. And I need to figure out like how to be a vessel to absorb that before I then go back and say, that's the thing.
mhm,
Because as designers, design researchers, we're just vessels and medium to take ideas and mold them into things.
mhm.
So, um,
So much to
yeah.
say,
So
so
that's
much to
why I've
say to
dealt
that.
with it.
Yeah, there's well, there's many things that stood out to me with what you've talked about. So humbling experience and well done going through your process of becoming Dr. Kem. A couple of weeks from now, I would enjoy calling you that. This is
Yeah, I don't know.
what
Yes, yes, that'd be weird.
yeah,
But
well deserved. Um,
yeah.
that, going from design leader practitioner to then learner and student, like humbling experience where it can
Yeah.
be a, hierarchical type of experience depending on those that we are studying with or learning from. So
Uh-huh.
yeah,
Mm.
then kind of put yourself in that position to feel like because it's like, whenever we go into leading teams or go into testing or validating our products, it's like you go in like, I know everything. I'm going to validate this as if I am right.
Yes. Yeah, 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 yeah.
You choose a theme of work or writing in your, for your PhD work, and it's like I want to validate, I want to learn, I want to research, I want to show
Yeah.
that I'm critically analyzing, but I'm right. But
Yeah, yeah.
be prepared to, test it or get feedback as if you're wrong. So that can be a very humbling experience. And
Yeah.
one of the things that I was reminded of is that you spoke to, and I don't want to change the words that you said, but that importance of doing like as you are doing your research or your work is that you find other references, use cases, and I was just looking
Holding.
at some other notes that I was writing yesterday of kind of like recommendations of. Well, I was reminded actually it was through a Tony Robbins reading and some writing where it was talking about your circle that determines your success.
Yes. Yes.
Like dim your energy. I'm just actually going to read through some of the
Yeah.
insights I had, but don't dim your energy to match others around you. It's like surround yourself who support your crazy goals. I mean, I'm so supportive and of, our motive. Like I'm so inspired by all that you've done, your goals. You never make excuses for what you want to do. Like I always feel like it's like I just want to support you. I don't want to ever slow you down. It's like I want to be part of that motivation and
Mm.
support.
I
And
love you for that.
yeah, like you don't need others to understand your vision. It's yours. It's not theirs. And
Yeah.
you're unstoppable. And with that in mind, it's one thing I see that you do and that you share with me is, these people you find or these, articles, resources that you find that you are looking for mentors, guides,
Yeah.
those can support you to achieve what you want versus
Yes.
you down. It's like it is faster to achieve what you want to do if you actually find people that have done it before.
But yeah, it is so important. It's the same thing in practice. The whole idea of academic scaffolding is finding out, like in real life, for me, the way I've transferred that knowledge I would not have known about was equivalent to who's in my ecosystem, right?
Mm,
Who can help me build because they've done it before. One thing to give advice, but if you haven't done it before, like why would I take that advice? But it's also important to talk things out, right? And there's some validation, cross validation when we talk, right? Because we have similar paths. We know what's working for us and what's not working for us. One of my mentors, I was speaking with her last Wednesday or last week, and she said to me, we were talking about no, when people say no to you. And
mhm,
for me, no used to be the most crushing thing. It would sit with me for a day, and I'd think, why don't they like me? Or
mhm,
what have you. And I think a lot of people, especially now going through applying for jobs and getting a lot of no's, it's the same thing, same read. But for me, I have now taken no's as quicker paths to yeses,
mhm,
right? So every time somebody says no to me, that's okay because you will, if you keep going and just let it go, attract the people who are your yeses. If you'd asked me this last year around this time, I'd be like, nah, yeah, I don't think so. But it was in the practice of that itself that got me to now a place where all of these little seeds that
mhm,
I planted are now like, oh my gosh, it's raising like little seedlings now.
mhm.
In terms of creating my forest where I can prosper and thrive and survive. So I'm not there yet, but it's all of these things, just the whole notion of empathy, humility, optimism. And by
Mhm.
the way, it's a very good list. That actually should be part of a framework for existence and
Yeah,
surviving,
yeah,
surviving the moment.
it's, your, yeah, thanks for sharing that as that, There is a article that I'm now reminded to share back with you. I know this one that we had talked about in the past, but the yes mindset
I
and
still
the
we talked about that last year.
not it's like, and I will myself through my, my coaching, but also conversations that I have with people, that I will look to bring back the, like, positive language so that I can
Mm,
have that I can give, and that I can have feedback in a positive way. And I find it so much
love
about
that.
what's in the language that we use, where people will say, especially designers, or, as you just mentioned, like many people that we know, peers, my own projects, where we are, myself, consistently putting up proposals, looking for
Yeah.
collaborations, partners, and where people will say no, that, the conversation, or how I look to continue. It's like I look forward to the conversation and look at it as not a no, but a not yet.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, we did talk about that.
Like, no, I didn't get that. It's like I didn't get that yet.
Yeah.
And, it's like, that larger scope of work, um, didn't work, but, yes, but, what about this as a pilot, or this as a subset,
Mhm.
what we might be able to do together, and how might we, you know, make this work in a way that there's benefit on both sides, but for a way of just really seeing how can we pivot and have a different type of business models, that
Mm.
because traditional roles and ways of working has changed for all roles within UX research and design. So,
Yeah.
an openness of just what the possibilities might be, but also the language we use that allow people to build on what's possible versus just shut us down is so critical.
Mhm. Mhm. Love that, the language we build. I think, that's a very interesting point.
It's like either, like it's triggering for people, it shuts down people, it doesn't, that was the biggest thing I found with my own coaching
Mhm.
with designers, or, strategists, whoever, people. It's that, what's the language that they use in order to, share the ideas they have and invite feedback.
Mhm.
And it's the, how do they themselves then respond to negative feedback, if that is the case, or knows, in a way that they can, feel good about where they land after that. And any no is it's a red light, but then it makes the green lights clear. It's like, okay, well, that one's a yes. So I'm going to keep driving down that direction, while also making sure I'm creating opportunities for what I want, so that the green lights I get are ones that I'm initiating, or opportunities that have created for me, that are very intentional versus just reactive. If that makes
Mhm.
sense.
Mhm. This reminds me of when I was going through my pivot and I still had to pay the bills. And I
Mhm,
was thinking, I don't want to apply for that job, but I'll apply for it, which I did a lot of that. I think I must have applied for a good 60 jobs at the time I was going through that pivot, trying to
mhm,
find my legging. And I thought, I don't want to manage people. I just, but I still applied. And a friend of mine working at that company said to me, you know what? There was the problem with your CV. You had so many errors in there. And for me, I was just like, I didn't want that job anyway, like, what the hell? But it really also gave me insight into always putting my best foot forward, and also putting my best authentic foot forward. Because I
mhm,
remember just pulling the CV together and just cutting and pasting things from there, and just like, you know, just the afterthought. But yes, and so it was that, I think, for me, that I went through a series of no's, right? Because my heart wasn't in it.
mhm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that just reminds me
Yeah, some
of
and
that.
sometimes, I was reflecting on that, and you never want to hear no's, especially the amount of effort it
Yeah.
takes, but it does, show us, or, gives us that reflection sometimes. And like, so with
Mhm.
what you expressed there, is like, if your heart's not in it, then somehow that's being, potentially picked up.
It wasn't coded in the CV, but
Yeah.
of course, when it's decoded by the person, the HR person or whoever,
Mm.
for them, it's not a dunk. Yes, it's like there's something off about it, right? So I'm sending
Mhm.
messages that they're saying. Well,
Hmm.
yeah, that's not an, but, and they know the yes when they see the yes, right? There's that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but yeah, I was contributing to a lot of no's in my life like 5 years ago. Like, this is the
Well,
job.
you turned that bus around, baby.
Yeah, the job that I really wanted, and we talked about this, although I didn't get the job, I did get a call from the dean,
Mhm.
but that was a job I spent 17 days working on my resume because there was a deadline for submitting your package, and I was the top external candidate. They went with an internal. That's okay. That was still good because things are working out where I am now, but I spent 17 days. That no job, 40 minutes, right? And so that was a yes and that was a no. So
Mhm.
they felt the work I put into that application, right? I encoded that. And this one I was just like encoding, please say no. This one I was saying, please say no. Yes. So it's funny.
So we never, sometimes we don't get what we want, but what we need.
Yes, yes,
It's like
yes, yes.
I'm gonna frame it
Why
that
did I
way
just
because
say that?
that's the positive and optimistic mindset, the way to look at it. So let's see. So as we think about these mindsets, curiosity, empathy, optimism, and humility, four that we've
Yeah.
chatted about today, I see them less as a checklist, and more as a rhythm in the work that we do.
Mhm,
Sometimes,
mhm.
sometimes one shows up stronger than the others. Sometimes we will, we circle back. And,
Yeah.
you think about your own journey actually, and you've really shared a lot of your own journey with me and those that are listening today. Which of these mindsets would you say hardest to sustain and why?
Humility, maybe. I don't know. And
Hmm.
optimism. That's a very true. That's a trick question, Ren. All of it. I
It's
index
about
them all
context,
equally.
right? It's like as if it's
I
like
index them all
based on the
equally.
today and the now, or is it kind of like overall?
Well, empathy and curiosity comes naturally for me. Optimism, I think that's already baked into my DNA. Like I am really, you hit me, I'll get back up and start fighting. And I think part of the has to do with the fact that I have kids to feed. But yeah, perhaps humility, it's very hard to sustain because, when you're putting in an effort and you're putting in an effort and there's a lot of no's, it does shrink you down a
Mm,
bit.
mhm.
So how you respond to that,
Mhm.
I never know in the moment how I'll respond. Uh,
Sure.
some of these, right?
Yeah.
So it's difficult to sustain because you're in the moment.
Thanks for sharing that. I think knowing you well for many years now, that you are a person that gives a lot and takes on, and that people will look
Yeah,
to be the one to make the hard decisions and to be the
yeah,
optimistic and empathetic one. And
yeah,
that's a heavy load to carry. So then, allowing yourself to have humility, and that's not always a place or something that we can show when we need to be the person that is the optimistic and positive on the outside, leading a team to keep them motivated and on track and feeling positive about the work that they're doing, while at the same time we can't necessarily show or feel our humility at that moment because it's not what
yeah,
they're looking for or what they need. So
yeah.
you're right. It is not a trick question, but a really hard one to think about or to
Mm,
really, yeah, humility is hard to sustain, but for all these reasons that are stressors and the context in which we've had to work.
so, so true.
All right. So we're going to have sorry, I'll let you I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, no, I'm just I'm reflecting on some of the script as well too. But yes, these are to me a lot of the skill set that is so germane to designers. You know, just the empathy part also indexed very highly for designers and design practice. We're thinking about that a lot as well too. How do we take that and make it something else for the moment?
Hmm.
I was thinking yesterday that designers are like the modern day muses, and perhaps I'm talking about traditional designers, but
How much that feels like a longer conversation.
I know.
It is. That's going to be a longer conversation. I can feel it. The
Yeah,
designer is muse. Next,
yeah, honestly,
yeah,
honestly.
yeah. So, rapid fire round time. Let's have some fun with this. So, before we wrap, I'd love to end with some quick fire questions to get a glimpse into how you think about design in everyday life.
Oh
Are
my
you
God. Okay, 1 second.
are you ready?
Let's go.
Let's go. Okay. A design tool you can't live without.
What is a design tool these days? But maybe my kitchen spoon.
Excellent. Good. I want to see it next
Oh
time.
my God.
A book or article you'd recommend to your students, your peers, your colleagues, those on this listening in onto this podcast, something you're recommending again and again.
Safia Noble's Algorithms of Oppression.
Mm.
Yeah, that I have recommended a lot. Perhaps the most recommended book, as it has to do with design systems and, of course, the search engine on Google. But yes, but I have been recommending that a lot, and my students love it. In fact, it's on my syllabus this year. Yeah.
Wonder I have not read that one, so I'm going to take a look at it. Look at the face.
I have a copy. You can have it. Yes. Because I had the pleasure of meeting her. She's wonderful.
Wow,
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah. She was, I co-moderated a panel for University of Waterloo, and
Hmm.
she was the guest of honor.
Oh, that's
And
cool.
yes. So maybe that's why I recommend her book, because I had a visceral experience with her. But
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to get more into that in another episode as well. So we talked about the four mindsets. Any underrated mindset in design that we didn't talk about today that
strategy.
strategy?
I don't know if that's a mindset. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it is strategic mind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, strategy. I think people don't think of designers as being very strategic people,
No.
right? And it is really sometimes so embedded in the work that we do, it gets lost,
Mm-hmm.
right? We are, and I'm talking about all shades of designer, whether you're sculpt or whatever, we're very visceral people that have that ability to pivot and to think about a future space, whether it is something that we were thinking about designing to meet a need, but
Mm-hmm.
that itself is strategy, right? You're thinking about, how you do this stuff and how do you do this thing and how do you achieve this and who. So
Mm-hmm.
there's that is really on the unfolding of strategy. So I think, yeah, it's a mindset that designers need, especially now, to think about how they pivot from maybe traditional ways of doing things. And I think they're um they're primed to do that, right?
Mhm. A futures mindset, a
Yes,
business mindset. Yeah, I'll have to think about that more. That's a great reflection because certainly with a lot of teams that I've been talking with lately is the role of the designers, dare I say, has been more of a thinking of them as like a service bureau or a requirements taker or fulfillment. So, and playing that role
oh,
that people may typically talk about is like, oh, we as design don't have a seat at the table, but
yeah,
while not maybe creating conversations that allow people to see the value and the strategic feedback or futures mind
yes,
that they can provide. Certainly not in every case. It depends on the company and organization, but some have, kind of now reside in more of they may frame it as like service design, but they're more into that requirements and product space where then the product owner, leader, marketing person may be the one that has the seat at the table that's representing the work that
yes.
team is doing, but that team itself is order taking. I don't know how else to describe it.
You're
It's the
explaining it
end of
perfectly.
end of our conversation, so my brain is not
Yeah.
well articulated.
No, 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 I get exactly what you're saying, but we've known each other for so long, I could fill in some of your words.
Yeah.
But yeah, but it reminds me of my design team back in the day creating prototypes that had not existed, right? And
Mm,
so they were responsible for creating prototypes for the sales team to, go demo wherever.
mhm,
And what struck me was that we're able to um take ideas, whether the requirements or whatever, and
mhm,
have crystallized thought of what the thing needs to look like and be like. How we get there, of course, we'll need help from engineering, whatever, but that itself is some, exposition and unfolding of strategy to say, this is the thing that we're trying to sell, and
mhm.
we are the envisioners of these things.
Yeah.
But people think of us as just painting these things, but it takes mental process to think about whether or not you're designing. And I think example I gave was the traveling nurse or the home care nurse. We have to think about the house constantly, right? How are we going to achieve that? What if
Yeah.
she can't make it and she needs to reach to another traveling nurse? What happens, right? How do you
Mm.
connect to Bluetooth? Apparently, I have a patent for connecting Bluetooth. Like that is all strategy, but it is not often given that framing in corporate spaces.
Mm-hmm. So more to unpack there. I was just finding myself that I was expanding the conversation and I was aiming for the rapid fire number 4.
Oh, oh yes, you'll edit as
A
needed.
favorite number 4 rapid fire question. A favorite everyday object you think is perfectly designed.
Oh my gosh. I don't know.
Anything around you?
Well, my mug.
Well, there we
My
are.
mug.
Look, I have one exactly the same.
It's perfect. I love the way my fingers fit in the little side. It's just perfect for the way I hold my mug. I don't have that experience with every mug, but there are other things too. What else is here?
And so funny for anyone that's listening in, we do not talk about the mugs that we will be
No,
on the calls. And I think so far we've chosen, I think, 3 the same, even
I
though
have
we
lots
have
of
no
mugs,
idea.
as do you.
I
So,
know.
yeah.
But it's quite coincidental that we are, or is it
I'm
not?
changing my color next time. Changing my color. Match that.
Too funny.
Yeah.
Mugs are important. Tea, coffee, you have to have the perfect cup of perfect cup makes the perfect cup.
Yeah, and this one retains heat, so my coffee doesn't get cold as fast.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, yeah, I
Lovely.
think it does. I'm drinking a lovely red mug.
So we've spoken of the perfect object, every day
Yeah.
being the mugs that we are sharing today. But if you could redesign one everyday service tomorrow, what would it be?
I don't know why I said that, but I live on a main street. There's a bus stop right here. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I see people waiting for the bus for like 40 minutes. I'm like, I mean, they will tell me things like either the bus is late or what have you. And I know they've done a wonderful job in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
So that is, yeah, the service. Yeah. In
Yeah.
Canada, we
The,
do a better
yeah.
job at designing, the bus routes for people because especially in the winter, I see elderly people standing at the bus stop in the snow, and I just think like, why don't they have a building to sit in
Mm,
and away? So
yeah.
I've given many umbrellas here, by the way.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
sunroom is void of maybe 6 or 7 umbrellas at this point. So yeah, so I would love them to redesign a better service, bus transportation service in this region.
All right. Let's
Yeah.
see where we can have that as a charrette.
And I could see a gentleman walking back and forth waiting for the bus right now. Maybe that's why that popped into my mind.
Yeah. You prove it for yourselves. You have all these people like lingering back and forth, distracting you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
self-serving.
Yeah,
You're
exactly.
distracting me.
Yeah. So,
Yeah. So
Kim, thank you for joining me today. It's always a pleasure to see you and have some time together. These conversations remind me that design is as much about who we are as it is about what we make, the services that
yeah.
create and provide. To everyone listening, I hope this reflection on curiosity, empathy, optimism, and humility inspires you to notice where these mindsets may show up in your own work and in your own life and where they might be missing.
Mm-hmm.
Design isn't just a process, it's a way of showing up for people and for the future that we're shaping.
Mm-hmm.
It's the heart of it all. Thanks to listening to Design with Renn. Until next time. Thanks for watching Design with Renn, where we explore what it means to create with care, context, and intention. If this sparks something for you, make sure to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who's designing for change. Want more? New episodes drop regularly, and you'll find resources, tools, and behind-the-scenes thinking right here on the channel. Keep designing with purpose, and I'll see you in the next one.